A Chinese blogger in Sihanoukville, Cambodia, couldn't help but sigh.
It's all unfinished buildings, failures before they even begin. The tall ones over there are all unfinished buildings. You wouldn't believe it without seeing it. Chinese investors spent billions in Cambodia, but all the properties lie abandoned. It's reported that there are over 1,000 unfinished buildings in Sihanoukville alone. Do they have no intention of completing them? This is a seaside in Sihanoukville, and the scenery here is still quite nice. However, in contrast, the abandoned buildings on the other side are quite bleak.
Mr. Lee is a Chinese living in Cambodia who often shares his encounters abroad. He said that he recently saw reports stating that there are over 1,000 unfinished buildings in Sihanoukville. Today, he rode around the city's streets to show everyone the current situation.
My route today is along the seaside of Sihanoukville, and indeed, there are many unfinished buildings. These tall buildings were built with huge investments. It's not exaggeration to say that there are over 1,000 unfinished buildings like these, some even costing hundreds of billions or tens of billions. But now they are deserted, becoming a blot to the city. From the video, you could see that some of the buildings are very close to each other. I heard from local friends that many of these properties were investments made through friends introducing friends. They know each other, pooling money together to buy land and build. That's why many properties are clustered together. Overall, the locations of these properties are very good, with some even in prime areas. This used to be a place where Chinese people like to come, and the land prices here were not low. However, now some people never want to come in their lifetime.
The most desolate real estate in the world is in Sihanoukville. It is all unfinished buildings.
Wow, there are so many unfinished buildings in Sihanoukville. Look, they're all unfinished buildings. They've been sitting here for 2 years, untouched, even through the pandemic. We've noticed a lot of unfinished buildings along the streets in Sihanoukville. Here's a hotel, and right next to it is an unfinished building. What struck me most about Sihanoukville were the vast unfinished buildings, the clean and tidy streets, certain industries you were not allowed to film, and the abundance of Chinese shops. Sihanoukville is really desolate now. With many unfinished buildings, the whole city feels lifeless. If someone tells you that investing in Cambodia can make you wealthy, or that you can make money by coming to Cambodia to work, remember, never come, because most likely, they've already set a trap for you.
To address the economic problems that have emerged in recent years, the Chinese government has vigorously promoted the Belt and Road Initiative, hoping to tackle overcapacity issues. Consequently, many real estate companies flocked to Southeast Asia to buy land and build. However, what they also brought were ghost towns and unfinished buildings, much to the dismay of the locals. One of the most typical examples is Cambodia. In response to the Chinese Communist Party's Belt and Road policy, Chinese funds poured into Phnom Penh, Sihanoukville, and other places in Cambodia. Vantong Holdings chairman Phung Lun once commented on investment issues, saying, "If you're looking for a place of transition, head to places where the GDP per capita starts at 3,000 USD and up, like Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia. You can practically buy land and build residential properties there with your eyes closed." Since 2013, more and more Chinese individuals and businesses have come to Cambodia due to favorable policies. China has contributed 80% of Cambodia's electricity, built the longest bridge, and laid underwater cables. In 2017, China's direct investment in Cambodia exceeded $1.4 billion, ranking first. In Cambodia, overseas accounts are not disclosed. There is virtually no foreign exchange control, and commodities are priced in US dollars. More importantly, Cambodia is an old friend of the CCP. For old friends' sake, Phnom Penh's Deng Hui Road was renamed to Mao Zedong Boulevard after the first leader of the CCP. This is a paradise for Chinese people. The previous Chinese $9 billion Ezubao peer-to-peer lending scam is not even worth mentioning. All kinds of people from China can make a fortune in Cambodia. Those scams that were once performed in the mainland are now being performed in a different location. Years ago, most developers in Cambodia were from Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, Singapore, and Thailand. Most of them were based in Phnom Penh. Later, China's major real estate giants such as Country Garden, R&F Properties, Greentown China, and Greenland Holdings all came to take a look, shook their heads, and left. Not long after, Chinese state media Xinhua News cited local sources claiming that Jack Ma had bought a beach in Sihanoukville to develop real estate. This false news, that was less than 100 words, caused the land price at the beach to soar by 50%. Real estate suddenly became the pillar industry of Cambodia. According to Cambodian government data, from 2011 to 2019, the construction industry's annual growth rate reached 17.3%, contributing 20% to the country's GDP. Between 2018 and 2023, over $20 billion in real estate investment poured into the country. After Country Garden left, the Guangdong real estate giant RNF Properties remained. They used the same tactics as Country Garden when they sold Forest City. RNF chartered flights to bring Chinese tourists to view property and exaggerate their sales pitches. If you show interest in Cambodian real estate ads, salespeople will immediately approach you. They will discreetly tell you how to transfer dollars overseas through underground banks. I recommend you buy with RMB. When you sell, you can get US dollars. That's real US dollar assets. The largest developer in Cambodia is not RNF Properties, but a relatively unknown real estate developer from Fujian, Prince Group. In just 3 years, it has launched over 20 projects in Cambodia, including a luxury hotel and a shopping center. Subsequently, dozens of casinos emerged, earning Sihanoukville the title of the Second Macau. The owner of Prince Group, Chen Zhi, is only in his early 30s. In recent years, many Chinese people have donated over 500,000 US dollars to the Cambodian government, becoming bestowed nobles. Chen Zhi is one of them. In 2019, Prince Group invested 500 million to build its headquarters in Phnom Penh. The rooftop features a large sky garden with its own helipad. Prince Group announced plans to invest at least 10 billion US dollars over the next decade, using Cambodia as a pivot to expand into Southeast Asia. It aims to become the most influential multinational corporation in the region. This commercial empire spans almost every industry in Cambodia, from large-scale businesses like casinos, online gambling, banks, insurance, airlines, currency exchange, and third-party payment platforms to small businesses like supermarkets, hotels, and restaurants. Due to the influx of Chinese investment, Sihanoukville is affectionately referred to as the Beautiful New World by Chinese people. However, the formation of this beautiful new world relies on the thriving gambling industry in Sihanoukville. In 2017, Cambodia lifted restrictions on the number of domestic casinos. A year later, it was rumored that the population of Sihanoukville reached 350,000, with 300,000 of them being Chinese. Hundreds of thousands of young Chinese people arrived with the dreams of striking it rich, becoming customer service representatives and brokers for online casinos. Subsequently, many cryptocurrency programmers also flocked here. With the influx of Chinese people, the Deputy Prime Minister of Cambodia personally issued an order to regulate the signs on the streets. All signage must be primarily in Khmer, Cambodia's official language. The arrival of Chinese people brought vitality to Cambodia, along with restaurants, hydroelectric stations, and buses. Of course, they also brought huge demand for real estate. Driving around the streets, one can see residential construction everywhere. In the past few years, all properties were selling well. You can sell just by opening any real estate front. In Sihanoukville, property prices were $200 US per square meter in 2014, soared to $2,000 in 2018, and reached $3,000 before the gambling ban was issued. A tourist from Shanxi, business opportunities in Sihanoukville in 2016. After returning to China, he invested $200,000 to hire Shanxi noodle chefs and sell Chinese cold noodles, and then use the money to transform into a local land speculator. He described the business as booming. Making over $1,000 US in profit every day, he seized another opportunity by subleasing storefronts. Renting a storefront for $1,000, he would refurbish it and then rent it out for $5,000. He bought 30 hectares of land near the airport for $1 US per square meter. After Prime Minister Hun Sen's re-election, he sold it for $30 per square meter, making a 30-fold profit. The land price, which used to be $3 per square meter, has surged to around $2,000 per square meter. Houses that were once rented for $2,000 per month with no takers are now being offered for tens of thousands of dollars, marking an increase of 5 to 10 times. Sihanoukville has become a city where every inch of land is valuable. Land prices in areas like Coastal Road have risen to over $3,000 US per square meter. Apartments and convenient business meeting centers on the main roads rent for about $5,000 per month. Apart from Chinese investors, no foreign investors dared to buy land at such high prices. The city, built on the gambling industry, was also drowning in economic bubbles. A casual meal would cost $30 or $40, and a bowl of fried noodles at a Shaxian restaurant is priced at $5. Such a bubble is bound to burst at the slightest change in policy. After China's foreign exchange control in 2017, Chinese real estate giants began to slowly divest their profits. Country Garden planned to sell its entire overseas portfolio, from Malaysia, India, Indonesia, Cambodia, UK, and Australia. Finding buyers for such a large asset package won't be easy. The foreign exchange control prevented money from leaving, and the pandemic restricted people from leaving. These were serious issues faced by all real estate companies investing abroad. Soon, the beautiful new world of Sihanoukville began to lose its charm. 2019 was the year of law enforcement cooperation between China and Cambodia. On August 13th, personnel from the Chinese Ministry of Public Security arrived in Cambodia to discuss joint law enforcement cooperation. 5 days later, Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen issued a ban on online gambling. That day became a Waterloo for many Chinese people in Cambodia. In the following months, hundreds of online gambling workers were repatriated. In the online gambling zones, people were hastily leaving every day with their baggage. To evade capture, some even fled their companies overnight, crossed the border, and snuck back into China. At that time, Cambodia's two largest airports, Sihanoukville Airport and Phnom Penh Airport, were as busy as China's New Year travel rush. Within 7 days after the gambling ban was issued, a total of 88,000 Chinese people left. Cambodian officials said that nearly 200,000 Chinese people would leave Cambodia by September that year. The total number of Chinese expatriates and overseas Chinese in Cambodia at that time was only around 1 million. However, not long after the gambling ban was issued, the pandemic struck. In Chinatowns, 90% of projects were halted, sales teams disappeared, and Chinese intermediaries in Cambodia almost all disappeared. The Cambodian government said that after the COVID outbreak, there were only 15,000 Chinese people in Sihanoukville. In 2020, sales of properties in Sihanoukville were mostly in single digits. Many investors who faced financial difficulties or debts desperately looked for buyers. This triggered land and property sales and subleasing. Given the economic downturn, many local landlords also began to lower rents. A Chinese person in Sihanoukville expressed that before the gambling ban was issued, the real estate and were booming. But now the land is left idle, and many properties held by investors are like hot potatoes that they want to get rid of. A single room rented from $700 to $800 per month, even higher than in Beijing, Shanghai, or in Guangzhou. Now you can comfortably stay in a single room for just over $100. Tenants and investors tried various ways to persuade landlords to lower rents. Some landlords also realized the declining market conditions and made concessions to retain tenants, leading to continuous rent reductions. Near Dolphin Roundabout in Sihanoukville, there was a house with 5 bedrooms and a 100 square meter storefront. It was spacious and beautiful, adjacent to a casino. During peak times, the rent was over $8,000. After the gambling ban, the rent was halved to $4,000, then reduced by another $2,000 during the pandemic, and now it's only $1,200. Today, Sihanoukville has lost its prosperity. There are still many unfinished buildings, reminiscent of a person entering old age. According to data from the Sihanoukville municipal government, there are about 360 unfinished buildings, and another 170 completed but vacant. It is estimated that $1.1 billion will be needed to complete these unfinished buildings. Cambodia has become overly reliant on Chinese funds. In 2022, the country approved $1.9 billion in foreign investment projects, with 90% coming from China. According to a construction company manager in Cambodia, it is very difficult to fill the gaps left by China with investment from other countries. The story of Sihanoukville in Cambodia is just one episode among many nations receiving investments from China. According to reports from the Associated Press, a dozen poor countries face economic instability or collapse due to difficulties in repaying foreign loans, with much of it attributed to China, the world's largest and most unforgiving government lender. Looking at countries like Zambia, Pakistan, Kenya, Laos, and Mongolia that owe China the most, the Associated Press found that their debt is gradually eroding funds meant for schools, electricity, food, and fuel. Interest payments are draining these countries' foreign currency reserves, leaving some with just months before that money is gone. Zambia and Sri Lanka have already defaulted. Unable to even pay the interest on port, mine, and power plant financing, Sri Lanka saw its largest protests since independence in 1948, driven by dissatisfaction with the massive agreements signed with China. The former president fled overseas, and half its population are in poverty, and over 500,000 industrial-related jobs have been lost. Now, Pakistan is also burdened with excessive debt. It is following Sri Lanka's footsteps, unable to maintain power supply and machinery operations, leading to millions of textile workers being laid off. Kenya's government is even cutting civil servant salaries to divert cash for foreign loans. According to the BBC, the initial launch of the Belt and Road Initiative was surprisingly positive, even hailed as the Chinese version of the Marshall Plan. However, as time passed, it turned out to be unexpectedly poor, especially with the world economy in decline after the pandemic, worsening China-US relations, and the global supply chain fracturing. Chen Gong, founder of Unbound think tank, suggested that it's safe to conclude that the Belt and Road Initiative has failed. Another unnamed Chinese think tank expert living in the United States told BBC that a key reason for the failure of the initiative is that China's political system cannot support such a globally expansive project. The report pointed out that many countries heavily involved in the Belt and Road Initiative have found themselves worse off, with crippling debts. Laos, with an economy below $20 billion, owes over $1.4 billion due to a joint railway project with China. It is seeking debt relief from Beijing before the railway is even operational. Meanwhile, through the Belt and Road Initiative, Sri Lanka built an international airport with no traffic connectivity, idle conference centers, and a deep water port handed over to Chinese firms, which all worsened its debt burden. Other countries like Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Greece share similar struggles. A study by Boston University's Global Development Policy Center, released on October 9, 2023, revealed that as of 2021, the Belt and Road Initiative had provided over $330 billion in loans to developing countries, surpassing World Bank lending in certain years. The same study indicated that many recipient countries of Chinese loans are now struggling with overall debt. For China, these debt issues in recipient countries are bad news, as these bad debts have led China to become the world's largest creditor for the first time. Statistics show that from 2016 to 2021, the U.S.'s share of global debt holdings dropped to 2.4%, while China's soared to 30.4%. Since the launch of the Belt and Road Initiative, many financing channels have expanded continuously. The China Infrastructure Investment Bank, based in Beijing, and the Silk Road Fund, established by the government, provided loans for this initiative. By 2022, loans from China's Export-Import Bank reached 2.2 trillion yuan, and by the end of June, around 152 billion yuan worth of bonds had been issued overseas to finance the Belt and Road Initiative. However, the document did not disclose the total amount of unpaid loans from the initiative, which helps avoid criticism about the unsustainable debt burdens these loans have placed on many poor countries.